Great. Okay, cool. So before I start, I thought I'd talk a little bit about what Pandoc. Oh, sorry, maybe I'll keep that there for now. So Pandoc is, so people have mentioned things like Markdown, Markdown, Knitter, maybe no one actually said Knitter, but things like Pandoc and LaTeX. So how Pandoc is actually a tool for converting between all these different things, Word, HTML, if you're making websites. Because a lot of times if you want to do a blog post on your website, but you want to make all the HTML fit into, come from Markdown, you can actually use something like Pandoc to convert easily from a PDF to your HTML. Do you guys want to quickly introduce yourselves? Or that's okay. So you can just mention your name and like your department and maybe what you use to make your documents usually.
So my name is Barbara. I work from medical biophysics at Francis Margaret, and I try to use Markdown. Okay. And I just really struggled with it, and I saw what you guys were just
doing. Cool, yeah. Hopefully I can go over any questions that you might have. Yeah. No worries.
Yeah, myself, Sanjay Saul.
Yeah.
I'm working in Sandlin,
and I drive to me.
Okay, cool.
So.
Yeah, I'm trying to learn
okay, cool. Great. So I was just talking about how basically all these things like LaTeX, HTML, Word, the docx. There's plenty of other format types that you can actually convert between. I won't go over all of them. I'll go over kind of the main ones in the lecture today. But Pandoc is actually going to be your tool to convert between them all. And then by going through a document that I'm going to set using Markdown, we're going to learn how to use Pandoc. So we're not really going to go through an explicit lesson of Pandoc, but through converting as we go through the Markdown, I'm going to show you a bit of the tips and tricks for Pandoc. So if you guys all have an editor, do you guys have Pandoc installed? I think I've asked a few people, but if everyone else can check. You can check by typing into your terminal Pandoc space -- version. If that gives you some information about like the version and some of the information, like the copyright and stuff like that, then that's all good. If it's not, if it's saying that Pandoc is not a command found in Bash, you might need to install that. But everything I do now, you can actually, I will be in Markdown. So if you eventually do get that working, you'll be able to copy the commands that I type and then convert it after. If anyone needs help with Pandoc, maybe one of the helpers, you can put your hand up and one of the helpers will come get you. Okay, so let's start. If you can open your favorite editor, whatever that is. So you don't want like a Word editor in this case, a Word or Microsoft Word type thing. You want a text editor in this case. So what I'm using is Atom. It's just a text editor that lets me, that I just like with a lot of features that I use. But you can use like, depending on your computer, I think it's text editor or something like that in Mac or gedit in Linux, different things, Sublime, things like that. So let's just start. At the start of every so I made a document saved as, I'll just save this again, rename. You can rename it as something, document1 for now, just so you can follow along, and then .md for Markdown. So we're gonna start with a Markdown file, and then we'll convert it to different things, starting from this one. So you can do that. It's kind of small, but it's just document_1.md. And the first thing we're going to do is just start with this kind of like header section where you put some important information about the document. Yeah.
When I'm doing it in Mac, it asks for file format. Which text document?
So you would do Markdown. So it's the MD.
I can type it in, but there's no like drop down option.
I think that's fine, actually, right? Yeah, you might be using.
Yeah, it's
yeah. Okay, so I'm going to start with, you can start with 3 dashes like this, and this tells you that it's about to be the header portion of a document. So I'm going to make this a little bigger. So just 3 dashes. And then I'm going to enter. And I'm just going to put the title. And I'm going to call this Learning Markdown. Yeah. Oh, sorry, here, I see probably. Oh, you can open any sort of text editor. So does anyone know what the typical one on a Mac is called? Text edit, sorry.
Yeah, text edit.
So try to open the file, the software called text edit.
If and you just go to the little question mark on the top right corner. I mean the magnifying glass. This one? Yeah, and then just type in text edit. Yeah, that's all. Just press enter. Yeah.
And then you can name the file, anything you want. Yeah. Yeah, okay, thanks, Francis. Okay, so for now, we'll start with, I'll give you guys a minute to kind of get things going.
There, that's all. Yeah.
Okay. So just a refresher of what we just did, we saved a file. We're opening a file called document_1.md for Markdown. So I'll just write it here really quickly. Document_1.md. This is what you want to save the file as. You can name it whatever. I'm just for continuity. Okay. So the first thing I have is the title, and you'll see what all this information does in a little bit. And I'll put my name is Lena Tran. I'll also put the date. You can put whatever you want, but for the date of your committee meeting or whatever is important for you. So I'll put June 28th is today, 2018. And I'll just save, and then to end the header, you put 3 more dashes, just dashes, dot underscores. And there has to be 3, and there can't be any space in between them. We're just gonna save that for now, save the file. And now we're gonna do our first, so what you can do is either so this one opens a terminal automatically in the same folder, but what you can do is open your own terminal, go to where your file is. So if you know where your file is, you can CD into that file, into that folder. So CD documents or wherever it is. Mine's actually on my desktop. Sorry, I'm gonna make this a little bigger. The CD desktop, and I have a folder called Intro Pandoc. So maybe put your hand up if you can't get to the folder you need to get to, and then we can maybe help you. Otherwise, I'm going to go to that folder, and then I'll type a command using Pandoc. So we're just going to take a look at what this initial Markdown document looks like using Pandoc. So I'm going to do Pandoc of the name of the file, which is document_1.md. So you just do Pandoc and the name of the file you want to convert. And I'm going to do -F because it's in Markdown. F is for format. And then, sorry, I'm going to make this a little bigger. And then -T for to, or to convert to. I don't actually know what the T stands for, but to is what I kind of think of it as. I'm going to do HTML for now just to show you. And then -O means the output file. And I'm going to call it document_1 also, but with HTML. I'm going to press enter. And now if I ls, actually, I'll just show you on this side, ls, there's now this document1 Markdown that I made originally and the document1 HTML. So I'm actually going to look here inside. So from now on, I'm just going to use the text editor down here. But if you opened up your own command editor, terminal, you can do that as well. I'm just going to look at what the HTML looks like. Okay, so I think actually I might need some words in here. So first thing, let's just put a header and do test. I'm going to save that. I'm going to run the same command. Pandoc, wait, let me enter a few. Pandoc, document1.md dash from or format of Markdown dash T HTML, and then -O is document1.html. So I'm going to take a look again. So there you go. So actually for an HTML document, it doesn't have all the header information. So, but it turned my little test into, and I'll explain this. So this actually indicates a header. If you have pound sign, that's like your very first level header, and that'll be test. And so when you're turning it into an HTML, you're going to get head1, it's going to make it test. But we're probably not that interested in HTML. What we run, this is the default conversion. So what we actually type, if I actually type Pandoc document1.markdown, and I don't include this middle section of -F -T, and I just say -O, it can infer from the endings, the file extensions, that it's going to go from Markdown to HTML. You don't actually need to put that in unless you don't have some file. If it's more complex file instructions that it's not usually used to, and it's going to do the same it's not going to bring up any errors. So, but we're probably more interested in PDFs and like docx Word documents and things like that. So let's do that. So Pandoc, again, it's going to infer from what I'm typing. It says .md, so it's going to know it's from a Markdown file. And I'm going to do -o document1, and I'm going to do a PDF. If you follow the instructions and also download LaTeX, it should be fine. For PDF formation, it usually requires LaTeX as the engine in which it works. So I'm going to open this in a show in file manager, and let's take a look at our file, what it looks like. So I made a PDF, and it has my title, which I put in the header. I didn't actually have to explicitly say to write the title. I just write it in the header, and it will do the learning markdown, my name, the date. This is actually really useful for adding authors and things like that, which some of that information is from last lesson in the Intro to LaTeX, which is on the website. And then it has the first header right there. So it's a pretty simple document. We've already made a document using some simple Markdown, but let's go about making some more interesting things in our document. So I'm going to go back to the same document. First thing I'm going to do is just write some simple code or a simple sentence. I guess that's not even really a sentence. This is a test of Pandoc formatting. So my editor actually reads Markdown automatically. So you can see that this goes a little bit italics. So it knows that it should be italics. I don't know if yours will do the same. So it's kind of giving me an idea of what it will look like already. So that's helpful for having different editors and things like that. And then you can also make lists. So let's just make a list. So this is gonna turn it into italics. And actually what I want is to turn this into bold by using 2 asterisks. So you can just copy what I've written there. So this is a test, or you can write anything you want, but make use of these different markings. So these are asterisks, and 1 asterisk should do emphasis, which is kind of like italics. And then 2 asterisks will make it bold. And then you can do list item 1, list item 2. And there's actually 2 ways you can do, Pandoc is pretty flexible with its Markdown. You can actually use dashes here, or you can use, again, the stars. And then you always need a space. You need a space after the list indicator, or the starting of the list item beginning. So this is what happens when you don't have a space. So we're going to stop here, and then we're going to format again and see what the output looks like. So I'm just going to use the same command. You can actually go up, and then you'll have access to the last command that you just used in your terminal. So if you go back to your terminal, it should be in the same folder. Nothing has changed. I'm going to run the same thing, which is pandoc document1 doc markdown -o for output, and then document _1 .pdf. So I'm just going to run this really quick, and then I'm going to take a look at my PDF. So I'm just going to open this quickly. Oh, okay, I think this is another one that I had. Yes. So here you can see that the single asterisk, if we put it side by side, I'll have this as a preview compared to this. So the single stars made the italics, and then this made bold, and then now we have a list item 1, list item 2. And you can see what happened when I put the star but didn't put a space after. It didn't recognize that it was a new list item. It actually thought it was actually a star that needed to be part of the same line. And I'll talk a bit, yeah.
I didn't want to interrupt,
Oh, yeah,
but
sorry.
I had a typo.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, how do you pick these up? Are you going to cover that? Word has its own
Yeah, so that's usually about the text editor you're gonna have. So this Atom text editor has these red lines under here. See, under Pandoc, that was sort of like a typo right there. And it also has its own ability to recognize spelling mistakes, because it doesn't recognize Pandoc as a word, right? So it depends on what editor you're going to use, and I'm sure a lot of them have packages that you can install into them. So Atom is one example that has a lot of packages. Some people use Sublime, other.
Sublime.
Yeah, so Sublime probably has tons of packages you can download for different languages or different autocomplete and things like that. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to put so that's just going to leave that there. And so one thing we want is we don't always want to convert to PDF. Sometimes we want to convert to document too. And we can actually use, so I'm just going to, you can actually not always convert from Markdown. You can use something like, I'm going to convert this to HTML using Pandoc document1.markdown again, but this time I converted it all to HTML, and let's take a look at that. I'm going to put this on the side. So you can see it turned this into, if you sort of know it, this is just the start of a list, and then you have each list item. If I actually go from HTML, I can go from, I'm basically trying to show that from any of the documents, you can go from one to another. So you can use the HTML document to go to a Word document. X for this example. Now I have a document X file, which I'm going to open. And it should look like that. So my default Word formatting has like this blue kind of color for the header. We probably wouldn't want that, right? You'd probably want your own sort of like whatever text format you typically like to use. And so you can actually make a reference document that in Word, if you're always converting back and forth to Word, you can make a reference document that you only need to make once. And you can set that as a document that Pandoc will use to reference how you want to format headers, quotes, things like that, images where you want to put all these things. So if I have, this is actually header 1. I'm actually going to show you the reference document I have, which I've already made ahead of time. So this is the title. And what you can do to change, I think it's different in every kind of editor, but you can look up on your own time how to change properties of like the headers and like what font you want to, the default font, what size you want to make for heading 1, heading 2 for subtitles. And if you make a document that has an example for each of these, and then you can, like this one has heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, quote, text, just so I can see what things look like. I save this as a reference doc, right? And then I put it into my folder where I'm going to convert things, or you can put it in a place that you always know it's going to be. And you don't need to do this now. I'm just wanted to show you guys that it's possible. So if I actually, sorry, I'm going to go back here. I'm going to use the same command. So I'm just like, I'll type it again with you, document1.html -o document_1.docx. I'm going to do .reference, sorry. And then I'll actually use, I think it's called reference.docx. I'm going to quickly take a peek. So, sorry, this shouldn't actually be here because I have all the commands written here. Sorry, it's actually called reference doc. So this is the command here. I'm going to run that. That's the command. And then if I look at the formatting of my file now, it should follow what my reference doc looks like. I'm going to go to document1.docx. It should be open. Sorry, it's already open. I just need to close that and run it again. So now you can see that it looks different, right? It should follow the formatting of the reference document. And that's useful if you have different formatting options for depending if you're like whatever journal you're submitting to, or whoever you're submitting to might require different font sizes and different things like that. So it's useful. You can say one for, yeah.
How would you do that if you're converting to a PDF? Because you can't open up a PDF.
So that would be in your LaTeX template. So if you know how to do LaTeX, so you would also do a LaTeX template, and I could put those commands somewhere. I didn't include in here.
Okay.
So you can it'll be like reference.latex or something like that. It's a different command. And then you link to the template in which you would have all these things included. Yeah. Yeah.
I use Endnote for citation management, and they have like styles for each channel.
I'm gonna get into that, but we'll pause on that for a bit, but I will get to it. If I don't answer the question, you can put out your hand again in that section. Thanks. Okay, so we're done kind of like, we're gonna get into a little bit more formatting now, just because there's lots of different things you might need to do in your document setting that usually you can just click a button in Word to like make, but I'm gonna show you different ways that you can do different things. So what we had here is like a simple list that's like unnumbered. If you wanted to do a numbered list, you can actually do, or an ordered list is what they'd be called, I guess. I'm just gonna end this because it's kind of there. Actually, it's fine. Okay, so you can start with the number 1, and then you put the period, and then you need a space after so that it knows that that's part of your list. And you can write unordered list 1. And then you can also do sublists if you just tab in, or like 4 spaces, whatever you prefer. Sub item, and then 2 sub item. And then you go back out and you can do again the next item that belongs to it, ordered list 2. And then you can put more, I guess, if you wanted just to see, list 3. I'm going to save that. And then I'm going to run again the next, the command to convert. So if you just go up a few, or I'll just type it out just so you can see. Pandoc document 1 dot markdown. That's what we're doing. And we'll just keep doing to PDF. Document 1 dot PDF. And then I'm going to open up that file again. You can see that it just orders them nicely like that. Ordered list 1, sub item, sub item. I think there's separate packages that will put them as letters if you'd wanted to. And actually an interesting thing is that you don't actually need to put the numbers correctly. Because sometimes you move things around, right? And it ends up being like number 2 gets shifted all the way, like you need to move number 3 to number 2 and then everything is shifted. That's kind of annoying. So if I actually needed to move this as 3, 2, 1, it kind of ignores the numbers. So I'm going to put like these random numbers here. And if you still make the document, it'll know correctly how to order them just by the fact that they're ordered in a certain way, right? Which is kind of useful when you're changing things around. You don't actually know what the final order will be yet. So I'm going to open this again. See, oh, it actually does 3, 4, 5. It's weird. Oh, because I think it counts these as somehow part of the same one because I never officially ended it here. But if you started this, maybe I'll put this. So then it'll kind of not really count these numbers in order and then actually put them in the right order they are. That's kind of useful. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is sometimes you might need a horizontal line to separate sections. So I'm just going to make headers for these. So line. And what you all you need is like a ton. I don't know what the minimum number. I think it's 4 or 5. A minimum number of these, and you just like type a ton of them, and it's going to make a horizontal line. If you want a different type of a double underscore thicker line, you can do that. So let's just see how these look. So again, I'm going to run the same command in my terminal. So just make sure you have at least 4 or 5 of those. So those are equal signs, actually. Hard to tell. Okay, so I'm going to run this again and then see what that makes. Okay, so an important thing I haven't mentioned yet is that white space is kind of important in Markdown. So the reason that you're actually getting, let's put like a space in between there, and then you can type something. This space is necessary. You can put another space and another space. Just so we can see, and then run it again. So this is gonna make a centered line. I think you can change the default if you do something like this. Put a colon in front. I think that should put it to the right if we have the right one. I'm going to change it again. Oh, okay. There is a command for putting them not centered, but right now they're going to be centered. And if you make it bigger, it'll fill up more of the line. And then they'll separate like that. I'm not, okay. Let's take that out for now. I'm not actually sure why that's not working. Okay, but you can use the dashes for horizontal lines. So I'm gonna go over, this section is gonna just to be about new lines and paragraphs, yeah.
I put a number sign
at
the beginning of the dash line.
Okay, that's perfect. So maybe we'll do 2. 4 with the space?
Well, I did.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah, that can be something that works because maybe it's just depending on what kind of, yeah, maybe it thinks it's actually a title, a line, and then it'll move it to the side. I'm not sure. But yeah, that's an option. Okay, so we're going to do new lines and paragraphs. So like I said, white space is important. So this is going to be 1 line. And then if I put 2 spaces here, that's going to indicate that the next line should be on a new line and not attached to it. So this is kind of counterintuitive because when we type a new line in Word or other types of editors, it means it's a new line, right? You should get a new line. But the point of this is that when you're typing code and like longer things, you actually want the lines to not go extremely long, right? And this actually counts every line as individual items. So I'm going to show you an example. This is a longer line that goes over 2 lines, but really is just 1. So this one had 2 spaces. So if you do that, make sure you have 2 spaces here. This one, all I did was press enter, but I didn't put 2 spaces. And let's see the difference. Here you can see that this is one line with the 2 spaces stayed on one, was its own line, and the next line started on the next line. But because I never put anything here to indicate that it should be a new line other than the break, it's connected this to the previous line. This kind of thing in coding where you would want, especially with the size of this, you would want things to wrap kind of in the proper way so you can see more of the code in one window. But in order to do that, you need to break lines, but you don't necessarily want it to output as a different line, right? Depending on the size of your code. So it's kind of important for different purposes. And it's pretty easy to learn to you can either have 2 spaces at the end of your line, or you can just actually put a second space, and that will know that this will also be a new line, because it has this extra space in between, which will actually convert to 1 space. So let's actually do that. Saved it again, and I'm going to run it again. And this one saves as a new line, and it'll actually be a new paragraph. So if you really just want a line break but not a new paragraph, then it's better to just use the 2 spaces. Okay, so something we might need to do sometimes is block quotes. So that's when things are kind of indented a bit to be as part of a quote if you're doing kind of more, block quote. So I'll just type something. This is a block quote. This paragraph has 2 lines, and there must be a space after. Sorry, I'm a bad typer. I use these backticks. So that's the backtick that kind of goes forward a bit, back a bit, I guess. And that kind of tells the program to not actually convert that into the Markdown formatting. So if you haven't noticed, Markdown actually only uses punctuation to let you know what kind of formatting, to let the program know what kind of formatting to do. So if you want to escape that formatting default in Pandoc, you can just use these backticks and it'll just type exactly what you write. Let's just see what this looks like. So this is kind of indented a bit, and because I didn't actually put spaces after the 2 spaces after each line, it's going to again count them as one big block quote. So you can break things across multiple lines using this as well. And if you really wanted to, I could put a double space there. And again, now it's broken it into 2 lines, right? So just keep track of your white space. All right. So something you might want to do sometimes is include code chunks. So I'm just going to do code. I don't know why I switched from 1 to 2. Code chunk. So again, I talked about those backticks. If you actually use 3, and I'm going to use Python. The reason I'm writing this here is so that the program actually knows what language I'm using. And you'll see in a second how useful that is. Because I'm going to write some code. You can just copy what I have. It's not necessary that you that everything makes sense to you, just to see how the formatting works. And I'm going to define a function. So that's just define random number. Return. It's actually not that random, but anyways. Okay, and then, whoops, sorry. And then at the end of everything, I'm going to make a new line and do 3 more backticks. So that's 3 backticks, the word Python, and then I wrote some code. Doesn't really matter that it makes sense, but it's important that it has some Python keywords just so you can see what this does. So I save this and convert again to PDF. And then what I get is this really cool, like you get actually syntax highlighting, which is kind of useful if it just makes things a little bit more readable. So that means like numbers and things will be colored a different way. The keywords like define and return will be colored a certain way. I mean, that's kind of useful if you're just doing a lot of code chunks and you need to send these things to collaborators and things like that. It's just more useful to read. So that's pretty useful. You can do R, you can do whatever you want. I think it knows most languages at this point, Pandoc. And if it doesn't, you can probably find a package that does. And we'll talk a bit about how packages work in a bit. So another thing is if you're using LaTeX already, you probably already want, have I been saying LaTeX all this whole time? But anyways, it's LaTeX. If you want to include LaTeX equations into your document, you can actually use the kind of same formatting. You can just do, so I'm just going to do this section as /LaTeX. And if you use LaTeX, you might know what that does. It'll actually format it nice, like the way that LaTeX is typically written by the people who wrote it. So here's an example of just an equation. So you can copy what I'm writing here. Goals. Try to make it more space. Limits. This is kind of a complex equation. I shouldn't have put all this here. But let's try to do this. Just to kind of demonstrate the different things. And you end with your $sign. Kind of a lot, but if you can get, I'll leave this on for a little bit. I'll just convert this now. And hopefully if I wrote everything right, it should convert nicely to actual math. So I'm going to move this in. Oh, I didn't save it yet, sorry. I'm going to remove some of this white space, actually. Don't think it likes that very much. Okay. Okay, so it doesn't like white space unless really necessary, similar to LaTeX, I guess. All right, so the only white space I have is just in between the limits and the sum here. And then my document here, produce this nice mathy, and this, like, you know, it knows all the shortcuts of LaTeX as well. So if you have like certain ones that you like to use, it reads straight up LaTeX as well as whatever. It obviously, depending on what you're converting to, PDF automatically uses LaTeX as its engine. But if you're doing something like Doc, I'm not sure that it'll actually do it unless you explicitly tell it to use the engine as LaTeX. So let's just try that quickly. And I'm going to open up the document. Oh, so it does know how to do it. Some of it's a little lost in there. Yeah. Because it might just be actually my document reader is not the best. So if I make that bigger, it's not actually making it look that nice. But obviously, if you're using LaTeX, you would probably prefer to do PDF anyways. So yeah, that's pretty useful. It knows all your typical LaTeX commands. If you have like a whole chunk that you already wrote in LaTeX, you can just put it right into your code and it'll automatically read it. So that's pretty useful. It actually does the same for HTML. If you have your HTML chunk that you've already pre-written, you can just put that right in there. It'll ignore the fact that it's not Markdown and convert it straight, like include it into the final output of HTML. How are we doing for time? So we have about 10 minutes left. I'm going to get into the citations, because which is pretty useful, especially for making documents and things like that, for committee meetings, for publications, if you're beyond the point of committee meetings. Okay, so the important thing for using citations is it needs to use a filter, which is sort of like an extension, but it goes, so the command would actually look like this, pandoc.citeproc. So you need to have this portion somewhere in the line. And then just, so I'm just going to keep it here. so that you can keep it in your notes, and document1.markdown, and then -o document_1.pdf. So you need to have this portion right here somewhere in that command. You can have it in between here and here, but it doesn't really matter. You just need to have that. But we're not going to use that yet because we actually don't have any citations here. If you use whatever, EndNote, Mendeley, Zotero, you can always export a .bib file, right? If you're able to do that, you can look online how to do that based on your favorite reference engine. I have one here that has library.bib. It has a ton of papers here, and it uses this @article. This is what a bib file usually looks like, and this is the key that I would input into my file to access the citation. So I'm going to copy and paste this one. I mean, I don't really need to, but I'll just show you what this means. So this, I'm just going to say this is a fact. And what I'll do is use these square brackets, and I'll do the @ sign. And I have an extension in my actual text editor that lets me search. Lets me search by type. It knows that once it sees an @ sign, it'll start looking out all these things, looking for, and then I have the exact same one that I want. It'll like fuzzy search in the bib text file that I tell it to, and I'll put a period. Then you can do multiple. This is a fact proven or shown, proven, maybe not proven, shown by many papers. So if you have many papers, you would do the same @ sign. I'll just do a, then you would want a semicolon after the first one. So you don't actually, you don't have a bib file right now, so this won't necessarily work for you guys, but I just thought I'd demonstrate. I'll just do B, one more, and then the third one, C, @C, colon. So these are like some random papers that I have that are important to me, but so I have a library.bib file, and then you mentioned that you had the formatting, like a CSL file, right? That tells you whether it's like nature formatting or, so I'm going to show you what this looks like. So it doesn't look pretty, but basically you can download this online. I'll put a link to it actually in the event posting for all the different types of papers, journals you can think of. It'll have a link to all the possible CSL files that you could think of. And you just put that file, you download it from this website, which I'll link to, and then you put it in the same folder. Well, you don't need to put it in the same folder, but somewhere you can access. And then I'll show you exactly what you can do to get it to look like that. So what I have is some citations here, right? The program needs to know, one, where to find the citations to get the information like year, title, things like that, because all it has here is a code. So it needs to find where that code belongs to. So what we're actually going to do is go all the way back to the top, and we're going to put that information into our little header here. So we're going to do bibliography, bibliography, and then you would put the name of the file, which I called library.bib, which I exported from EndNote, Mendeley, whatever you have, .bib. And then you're going to put citation style. And then I'm just going to use Nature because one day I still dream that I will publish in Nature. So that's there, and I'll use that CSL file that I got from the internet, and it'll be in the format of Nature. And I'm going to show you. So I put that in the header. And these keywords like Pandoc knows to look for, so they have to be written like that. And this is the name of your file. So I didn't actually have to name it nature.csl. It could be whatever, but it does need to be a CSL file. So let's save this file and let's convert it to a PDF. Let's see what it looks like here. So again, I wasn't careful with my white space, but so this is the fact. Oh, I didn't actually put the command that I told you guys to use. So let's do that, and I need to add those commands, which is, sorry, let's go to the bottom here, .filter. So this tells it to use the Pandoc site production, I can't remember what that stands for, site proc filter. So now it'll actually know what to do with all these things. And then should make some nice filters and a reference at the end. So here, this is a fact, and then it has the nature style of numbers, like small numbers at the top. And then 2 to 4 tells you that it's looking at these papers here. Yeah, and then it makes a reference at the end. You can tell it not to. So one thing I like to do is in my documents, I always have at the very end of everything, I'll do a header and the word references, because it'll put that right at the end before it puts the references. We'll do that again, and then it'll look nicely like that. So then you sort of have this document with all the things you want in it, a title, Yeah. One final thing, if we have a bit of time yet, is just images. So does anyone have questions about the references? I'll put those links where you can find these things online in the event posting and in the document in which I upload online. Okay, so the last thing is images, which is probably useful. Oh, wow. Images. So I didn't talk about links, but that's something I'll include in the final document that goes online. A link usually looks like this, square brackets for what it actually, this is what you see. This is the link. So brackets and then parentheses for this, what you see, and this is the link. So .com or something, I don't know. So do like google.com. I'll just put that there. This is a link, but we're going to use that formatting basically for images as well. The only difference is you have an exclamation point in the beginning. So we're going to use a square bracket, and the text that actually see, like obviously it's an image, you don't actually see any text, but sometimes when people hover over your image, you can get some text, especially for like accessibility reasons for the sight impaired. I usually just type alt for alt text, but I don't usually put anything there. You can put your figure captions in here, and that's kind of a longer process, which maybe I can include in the footnotes later. And you put the link to your image. So I don't actually have an image here, image.png. And then that should output an image exactly as you want. And then if you wanted to change the size of the image, you could then do something like curly braces, and then width equals 50%. Or something like that. Or if you actually have a pixel number, you would put 50 pixels. And these need to be spaces in between all this, and then no spaces here. That's an example of how you can get an image. So you can link to whatever image you have on your computer just to test it out, but it would need to be in the right folder. So if it's in a different folder, you would have to go like to that folder. So you don't actually know where your files are. So you can either drag and drop one into your folder right now. So that's one way you can do images. So if I run this, it's actually not going to be able to produce it because it says could not find the image. But I'll show you at least what the link looks like. Where did it go? So this is a link. This is what you see. And you see it has the little thing, google.com popping up. It won't actually open because it doesn't have access to this right now. Oh, sorry. It needs to be HT. Yeah, it needs to be a full. Just for, I think I have it set up so that it's all local. It'll add this to your local folder. I'm not sure if that's the default for all the things, but if you do that, it might actually work a bit better. Okay, that's not what I wanted. Okay. Yeah, the final document that I put online will have all the different types of links that you can make. And then finally, yeah, that should be pretty much it. If you want to convert between once you make a PDF, you can then convert that to a document. And then you only need to make the point of Markdown and all these different tools. You really focus on the content. And then once you're done the content, you can convert to whatever you want, set the formatting to whatever different things you need to format it to. And you only really need to write the content once. You don't need to move things around necessarily. So yeah, this is basically what we're going to cover today. Obviously, there's a lot more out there. I just wanted to show some of the things that you can do. There's a lot more extensions as well that you can use. On the Pandoc website, there's a ton of extensions for different things you might want to make, like tables. Tables is a strange one. There's not automatic support for tables, but in the document that I upload, it'll kind of show you how to do that. But it uses an extension, and that requires you to do something like telling the command to actually, similarly to how I actually have Pandoc typeproc, I need to tell it to use this. If I want to make it use this table program or a table extension, I would have to use the Markdown for that from Markdown with, which is the plus sign, with, I think it's called simple tables or something like that. But when you find any extension that has some sort of role that you want to use, you can actually just do plus and the name of the extension, and that's how you use an extension. If it does something that's not built into the base packaging. So yeah, that's basically it. A lot of the things I mentioned that maybe we didn't get to cover today are all going to be on the online document, so you can check that there. And yeah, that's basically it. Thanks, guys. Any questions, maybe? Oh, yeah.
If you wanted to convert something from like LaTeX to Word, do you have to like convert from LaTeX to Markdown to Word?
No, you can actually go from, if you have LaTeX, I think it should be able to go from LaTeX to Word. It'll kind of like do an intermediate step for you that like, technically it's not really going straight from LaTeX to Word, I don't think, but
But it should like
it should. Unless, but with things like the Word reference template, you might have to override that somehow. So if I do that right now, so if I actually convert this document to, let's just take a look, to LaTeX, or sorry, tech, that has a tech file, right, which has a ton of things. And then I do that one. So I'm going to change this to docx. Sorry, I couldn't find the image, skips that. And then let's see what the document looks like. So it's going to preserve the main formatting, but it's going to use the kind of the docx reference formatting, unless you explicitly put it in your LaTeX. So I think it should actually use whatever's in LaTeX and then convert it. But because my LaTeX is using base, whatever the base template is, not much is explicitly defined. Yeah. Yeah. So you can do all of that. Any other quick questions? Otherwise, we're always available on the Gitter and things like that, or on different avenues, I guess. So yeah, thanks, guys.